So let's talk about postmodernism. Now, postmodernism has a couple of notable philosophers associated with this idea, and those are people like Michael Foucault and Jacques Derrida. Now, Jacques Derrida is known as the father of postmodern philosophy. He was born in the 21st century. In the 20th century, and he died in the early 2000s in Paris, France. He was born in Algeria to Jewish parents. According to some popular sources, he was a Marxist, at least initially, and he is popularly known to contribute a method called deconstruction, which we'll talk about it in the latter part of this video. I am personally not a philosopher myself. I am a UX designer. So this video will also be let's say will not go into the will not dive into the intellectual literary parts of his thesis or research, but we'll talk about it on the surface level, something that you and I can relate to and understand and discuss. This philosophy has something that I think is important to discuss. It's mostly applicable or being applied or is visible in the higher education scene, specifically in the universities. So what exactly is postmodernism? Now, the idea of postmodernism is grounded in linguistics. So it starts from this question that does an individual reserve the right to assert his own meaning into the words that he communicates? Now, when I say the word meaning, what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to imply is, meaning here refers to the absolute truth or one universal understanding. Now, for example, when I say the word faith, okay, some of you will associate the word religion with it, and some of you will associate the word trust with it. So, therefore, if I put that in a sentence, that's more clear, right? But therefore, there is no one, universal understanding. So by that definition, words do not have inherent meaning. Now, I'll use the same definition for the word meaning in the rest of the video, so please keep this in mind while we go ahead. So let's go on. So based on his research, what he concluded is that because words have no meaning, dictionaries, which is basically a collection of all the words in a language, because he was born in the Western civilization, at least we're talking about in the context of the Western society. So at least in the Western languages, in dictionaries are basically links to different words. Now, if I say, for example, if I say the word agree, that can mean accept. So that's another word, or it could be a collection of words. So basically, every word is a collection, is a link to another word. So therefore, now because if you keep diving deep into this tree or this hierarchy or whatever you want to call this, into this well, you'll understand. You can make the case that, okay, based on this assumption, obviously based on this hypothesis, that words have no meaning. Now, in order to cope up with this problem that life has no meaning, or I don't know, I would say this is a solution or an antidote, but one of the methods he proposed to to I don't know if cope up is the right word, but because it doesn't really solve the problem, really, it's a nihilistic theory. Now, nihilism is basically the state where you feel that life has no purpose or meaning. So what that means is, whatever you do, it has no real reason to do it. Now, if I want to make this video, there is no real reason to do it. It's just me having my own meaning, or I'm actually creating my own purpose. So this argument in linguistics is applied in other disciplines and other areas of life. In using this argument, what he concluded is he devised a new method called deconstruction, which is again what it's trying to say is if you take it's basically a nihilistic theory where you take words and if you keep diving deep into it, so basically before deconstruction there's something called structuralism, which is you take a word and establish a meaning. Okay, so deconstruction is basically just playing around with the words until you basically destroy any literary significance or meaning of that word. So it's like it leads to one common place, which is no meaning, right? You know the result before you start, and that is there is no meaning. No, it's only the process that actually matters. And that's the idea behind postmodernism and whatever Jacques Derrida proposed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I can't be wrong. If any of you guys are philosophers out there, if you have a more sophisticated argument, something that us as non-philosophers can understand, you can put that in the comment section below, or wherever you're watching this. If I'm wrong with it, but obviously the tone of this speech can imply that I'm biased. Obviously, because I'm a human and I have an opinion, and that's why this video is shared in the first place. This video is not here to is not to educate you about the literary or all the implications, or to discuss all the implications of this postmodern philosophy. But I want to share my opinions and some of the things that you can take away from this idea, or let's say not take away from this idea. All right. So in the last video, I mentioned that I am not an endorser of this philosophy or this idea of postmodernism. Now, when I was talking about systems thinking, I said that systems thinking sounds like it is a very postmodern idea, but it's really not. And it's kind of difficult for me to I struggled a lot in trying to come up with an explanation or how this is not exactly a postmodern idea, or at least the way I understand or the way I implement it, it's not a postmodern idea. And the basic the basic reason why systems thinking is inherently not a postmodern idea is because it does not it does not have a common end, or it is not inherently a nihilistic philosophy. It's not a philosophy. I mean, systems thinking is just a way of looking at the world. It's just a way of understanding how of how to make sense or how to abstract concepts in this world. So that's what systems thinking is. But if you keep diving into systems thinking, it might sound like, okay, so there's basically no end to it, and the end is, okay, the world is so complicated and therefore life has no meaning. No, it's not. So that's what postmodernism is that there is no meaning. It's a nihilistic, that's what a lot of intellectuals have criticized this idea with, is that it's inherently a very, very nihilistic idea. Now, some people might take pride in the fact that there is no meaning, because, well, having no meaning also has some advantages to it. Well, you're free to have any meaning to it, but it also creates a sense of chaos. And that's why when I mentioned that Jacques Derrida was a Marxist, at least in the beginning, before it was cool to be a Marxist, it sort of explains his solution and his approach also. Like the argument of, the Marxism is basically the way of looking at this world based on, like, looking at the world as this world is nothing but a battleground of power, or power and hierarchies. So that's what Marxism is, right? So because it kind of attempts to explain the chaotic nature of our world, if you don't believe in, let's say, in a higher purpose. So it gives those people who have a nihilistic idea of this world some purpose to live in this world, and the way you live is by thinking of this world in terms of power. So there's the oppressed and there are the oppressors, and all this world is you have to try to not attach yourself to anything, but keep yourself clinging to any different different ideas. Now here's what my opinion is. First, number one is that having no higher purpose or vision will not sustain you in this life. Not having any not having any higher vision or purpose cannot sustain you in this world. So what I mean is, if you're only going about your daily routine, or you're going about your everyday life with just saying, okay, I'm going to go 9 to 5 and then come back, but what difference does it make? Because if I go to a job, or if I don't go to a job, if I die, if I don't die, if I eat, if I don't eat, what difference does it make? Who cares about it? I mean, all this is just an illusion, or basically we're just creating our own version of the truths. That's what postmodern idea is, but that's not a way to live in this world, because if you and that's not also, in my opinion, not true, and I'll explain in a minute why. Not in a minute, but I will explain about what my idea of let's say what an ideal world should look like, or let's say not a utopia, but what I think is true. The idea of nihilism sounds appealing to a lot of people, because it is liberating in some sense, in that you can do whatever you want, but it also creates a very if you keep doing, or if you ponder on this, it leads to a state which is that, okay, what difference does it make when whatever I do? Well, a higher purpose is not necessarily having faith in God, although that is definitely one of the higher purposes, to please a maker, or in the upper or a higher being. That is also a higher purpose, but some people have higher purposes even as an atheist. Like, for example, let's take let's take the case of Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk has one of his ambitions as making Homo sapiens a multiplanetary species. Now, if you take this problem statement, it does not have a direct answer. Unlike if I say let's go make money. Now, there are different ways of making money. You can either take a job, you can create a company, you can sell a land, or sell assets, and gain assets, or sell your assets, or whatever you want to do, and then you can make money. Now, all these answers are answered. You have all the answers to these questions, but something like making humanity a multiplanetary species, that does not have a one-line answer or a one-word answer, because it's not like you can buy a rocket that can solve this problem. It has so many different facets and so many different complications. For instance, if you buy a rocket, first of all, rockets, at least in the time that he started working on his vision, rockets were not reusable. And if you want to make humanity a multiplanetary species, you need to make sure the transport is affordable. And the way we can do that is a number of ways, and the number of ways and one of the ways is by making the rockets, or whatever medium of transport it is, reusable and less expensive for it to operate. So That is one of the steps, but no rockets, at least in those times, existed to make that vision a reality. It's not like even if you had $1 billion, you couldn't simply buy it and make that a reality. You had to work on it step by step. It took years to, and it will take years for it to actually happen. So that is a higher vision or a higher purpose, something that does not have a direct answer or a direct existence in a shape or form. Okay, so now so we talked about systems thinking and the fact that because I mentioned the fact that when I was making this video on systems thinking, I mentioned that systems thinking, for those people who haven't watched that video, a brief recap to that video is that if you look at the world as, you don't just focus on the components or individual units. So let's say, for example, you want to find out what the problem is really in that space. You just don't look at the problem as it is, but you find out how is it related to other problems, or what are the other things associated, what are the other facts, what are the other actors and everything associated with this problem. And also you find out the environment that it is in and the nature of the relationships that they have with other components in a system, and you understand the full system as it is. And that's what, like, understanding or abstracting mental models of any person or concept as a system is called systems thinking, that every individual unit has connections. So that's what systems thinking is. Now, in that video, I mentioned that one of the implications is that if you take any individual actor or concept or an element or a thing, an individual component in that system, if you take that component out of a system and if you put that system in another system with another environment, with another set of relationships, or with a different nature of relationship, it will react differently, because the only thing that's same is the component. So now, one of the things I mentioned is that if you take a component out of a system, not only is the system same, but the component is also not the same. So what I'm trying to imply out of this is that when you take a look at, let's say, collectivistic cultures, okay. Now there are radical ideologies or radical systems, obviously, like the collective. Now, the idea of individualism is that, okay, if you take an individual, if somebody does a mistake, or if there's a mistake in a system, an individual only gets the fault in itself, and it does not spread the problem to other elements in that system. I don't know if I'm making sense. So let's say, for example, I think it's very relatable in this context, in this pandemic, in this coronavirus pandemic. So if somebody gets a virus, and if everybody in the home is there, in an individualist society, what it's trying to say is, in an individual will bear the responsibility for his doings, and the system will not be blamed for it, or the people linked to this component will not be linked. Will not be responsible for it. But the upside is that if somebody, if this person is linked to to other systems, like let's say, for example, you are a part of a company, or you're a part of some group in some way, shape, or form, right? So regardless of whether you live in a collectivistic or a individualist society, now whether or not you do that, you are part of something. Now the idea is that if you do something good, all the credit only goes to the individual, and it does not go to the system, and that's the benefit, right? But the thing is that if you have a bias that, okay, well, there's a problem and there's benefit in that, all right? So the individual system is that, okay, so if you do something good, you get it. If you do something bad, you get it, and not the rest of the system. That's good, right? So that's it. And The problem with another radical collectivistic culture is that if something, at least the argument that is understood is that if somebody does a mistake, the full system takes in, and the full system gets the impact, and if somebody does good, the full system gets the credit and not just the individual. So my idea is somewhere in the middle. So let's take a system, okay, and that's a collectivistic culture. Let's say if you take a system here, the idea of postmodernism is that it's grounded in nihilism, is that there is no meaning, is that it starts from a bias, or it starts with the saying that, okay, life has no meaning, it doesn't matter what you do. Well, actually it does, okay, and that's not a way to live or sustain yourself, because well, okay, now I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole at this time. Okay, so anyway, so my idea is that, okay, in a collectivistic culture or in a system or whatever you want to call that, okay, it's somewhere in the middle. If I don't know what to call that, but in a or this is because I'm an Indian living in Sweden. Both of these are counter opposites. Now, one of this is Sweden is a very individualistic society. And India, where I come from, is a very collectivistic culture. Now, this is a two different polar opposites. So, here what I think is that when you take a system, okay, if somebody gets let's say, you work with the people, okay, and if you take a person or a fact or anything out of a system, it's not the same. Not only is the system not the same, but is the person not the same. But if, let's say, if one person is out, the thing is that the system will continue to operate. Yes, it will continue to operate, but it is not the same. So what it means is that the reason you have a purpose in this world is that, okay, there exists, let's say, good and bad, or whatever you want to call that, but there exists good, bad, and everything. But in a system, all right, if you take away, let's say, one person in a company, the company may continue to operate, but the reason you're valuable is that the company is not the same without you. All right. Now, that can be for good reasons or for bad reasons. Now, maybe you're a bad influence and that's why you were taken out. Or maybe you were a good influence and that it had to be taken out, so it got taken out by nature. Whatever that is. It's so this is why I think that, like that it's like the idea that living or understanding world as systems is very proficient, because it allows you to not make judgments immediately as something as good or bad and dismiss other ideas. But you need to have, yes, a purpose. Now, systems thinking does not inherently talk about what is right or what is wrong. Okay, the thing you also need to remember is that facts do not have wisdom. Okay, I'll give an example. Let's take the case of let's say X is dangerous. Now, X can be anything. It can be a dangerous animal. If X is when I say X is dangerous, it could mean dangerous could be anything. It could kill you. It could cause harm to you. It could cause memory loss or anything like that, right? So it can cause a whole stream of things. But if you say, okay, I'll only believe in facts, and only if you say, okay, this will cause malaria or whatever it is, exactly what is the name of the disease, and if you say exactly in facts, and only that will discuss only with that will I make decisions, then it is a very difficult and nihilistic way of living in this world. And because if you say facts will dictate my actions, that argument, in my opinion, is grounded in nihilism, because a lot of times facts cannot tell you how to act in this world. Okay, they will talk about how this world is structured, or how it's placed, or how it's um, how it is in general, but it cannot talk about things like it cannot talk about what you need to do with this fact. And that's why ideas like Marxism got famous, right? And postmodernism got famous, is because they gave ideas for people who think religion is causing oppression, because one of the things that religion does is that it puts a lot of restrictions on you so that you are on a check, right? Not every religion necessarily, but I'm not here to preach religions, but the purpose is that having too many restrictions. I mean, as I said, the idea of nihilism is also appealing because it's liberating, right? It's that you have no idea or no ruler, and that's why it got famous in the first place, or that's why it became popular in the first place. So, so facts alone won't take you anywhere. Systems thinking does not talk about the what is true or what is not true. What it aims to do is to explore and understand the nature of how everything is related, and using this system is how you can understand how it's connected, how it's related to other things in this world. Everything in this world is connected, okay? I and my friend are connected, and that can be so obvious. I and my enemy are also connected, and how they're connected is through some action or something. So everything in this world has a connection to something, and once you understand a system, you can abstract mental models. How is this useful as a UX designer? Well, the idea that you need to understand how people think, or abstracting mental models, is an incredibly complex idea. That's why a lot of people ask, okay, well, how do you understand what people think, or how people think, or what people want? The way you can understand this is by understanding how they think. That's the only way you can understand what they want, is abstracting mental models. And one of the ways is systems thinking. And as I mentioned, systems thinking is not an ideology. It's not a methodology. It's merely a way of looking. Okay, it's just an approach of thinking. Now, it's obviously it is clouded upon whatever vision you see it, and that's why inherently systems thinking is not a postmodernist ideology. Now, it looks like as though I'm trying to defend systems thinking. It's not like maybe it's not a perfect idea, a perfect idea or concept, but I wanted to clear this because this is my understanding of what of how I navigate myself, or how I understand things. All right. I hope this is useful, and let me know what you guys think about it. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Or if you're watching this on the website, let me know by email or whatever means you can. But be kind to each other. And let live and let live. So peace out, ladies and gentlemen.